Dada How, hi guys, it's Sinead and welcome back to my channel. And today is the final read-along for Scum Villian Self-Saving System period, but specifically volume 4. I can't believe we're here. It feels weirdly epic and sad at the same time. I'm hoping that I won't regret not having tissues with me, because I thought about bringing tissues and maybe I'll get some at the halfway break, but I don't have any with me right now, so we'll see if I regret it. But knowing MXTX, probably. Hi, thank you very much. I hope you had a good day as well. I had a good day. Thank you. Sorry, my brain just didn't do the words properly. So, oopsie. Wow, already failing this. So for anyone who is new here, hi, I'm Janae, and I do read-alongs occasionally, specifically every Tuesday and Thursday right now. But yeah, I'm very excited and nervous for today's thing, but we're gonna maybe run a little bit late because I'm determined to finish it up today. So we'll see how it oof, yeesh. You would swear I'm brand new to this. We'll see how long it takes. Um, but I am gonna give it like 5 minutes in case other people want to pop in as well. While we are at it, let me quickly. I just realized I didn't specify that this is our final live reading. Let's do this. There we go. Okay. I really hope that my voice doesn't give out or cause any problems, because I seem to be coming down with something, which is very inconvenient because I just recently started doing exercises and I don't want to have to stop now. Um, but anyway, so while we wait, we were on chapter 32, I think. Let me just double check. Okay, we were on chapter 30, sorry, page 321 at the top. In the middle of the sex scene. Why did I think this was a good place? No. We were. Did I really? Hmm. This feels strange. It feels like I would have stopped. And yet. Nope, I think that is. I'm correct. It's weird because we had like one page left, but I don't think I specifically was focusing on that. When I decided where to end it, I didn't realize we only had like a page and a half before the next chapter. But that being said, again, we are going to be taking a break at the halfway mark, so at the top of the next hour for 10 minutes, and then we will be back after that to finish up the book, which I just can't believe it's almost at the end. Okay, I think we can get started. Hi! I don't think I've seen you here for live before, but hello! Okay, let's get going, and considering this is your first live with me, or unfortunately this is very much focused on a read along, but yeah, I apologize for you coming in on this particular one because we're immediately jumping into the remainder of a spicy chapter, so good luck. Okay, moreover, in addition to being slept with, felt he felt it so deeply that he was going to retch. Shenjingshi became afraid that he would fall. He really couldn't take it anymore. He gasped out of fits and starts. Wait a moment, it's too deep. Looping her, put me down. Looping her nibbled on his earlobe and mumbled through slightly heavy breaths. Shizun, it's not deep enough. Still not enough. Oh my god. The amount of times I have regretted my life choices since starting this. Anyway, okay. He had stuffed Shinji-chi's belly full. How deep do you want Shinji-chi grown? Where else are you trying to go? Having had his full of him while standing, Nobuhiro pressed him down on the table. Shinji-chi's upper body was shoved down against the top of the table, his arms twisted behind his back as his legs trailed weakly on the floor. I have to say, I didn't know MXGX went this detailed with her sex scenes. This is a lot. Still, the edge of the table fit into the crook of his pelvis, spread wide open as Nobuhiro's hips crashed against his, the table shaking under their movements. Shinji-chi's face was pressed to the table as that hardness moved in and out between his legs. He was already at his limit, trembling all the way from his hips to his toes, nearly unable to stand. But Nobuhiro was still holding these two pale mounds of flesh in his hands, pressing them together in the middle so he could experience the overwhelming pleasure of being squeezed all at once. Great, okay. Shinji-chi felt more tormented than ever by the foreign object between his hips, not to mention how it was kneading and slapped in a way that didn't hurt, but which was extremely humiliating. Not long after, Nobuhiro switched techniques again. He only pulled out a little bit each time, then thrust back in even harder as the flesh beneath his hands was squeezed out. Out of shape with the force of his grip. Shinji sprawled over the table, his center burning under the steady grind in a way that both hurt and itched. He felt on the verge of insanity, but was locked in place, unable to move an inch, forced to take everything Nobuhiro gave him. Nobuhiro truly deserved the title of star student. He could have overwhelmed someone simply by copying from lesson materials. Shinji wanted to weep, but couldn't find the tears, and he could only weakly whimper. What exactly did you read? Well now, did you not see the sample material that we were given? Okay. Chapter 30, Honeymoon. Okay. After harboring the devil incarnate, loathing her, for a dozen or so days, Xinjing Peak's disciples finally couldn't take the harassment anymore and begged Shenjing Chu to take the person in question and lie low. Shizun, I hate Baijiang Peak, Nini whined. Hate, hate, hate. They're such brutes. They've destroyed the mountain gates so many times already. Shizun, I really didn't tell them this time. The disciple swears you have to believe me, Ning Fan complained tearfully. He nervously glanced at Lo Bing-he. Why not let Lo Shudi out to spar with them a few times? After beating them up enough times, they'll no longer dare to harass Chungjin Peak. Lo Bing-he was utterly unmoved. Shizun and I barely have any time to discuss business. Where would I get the extra hours to spar with those wild monkeys? Nothing, hell, you can't say it like that because then they're probably wondering, so what do you do all day if you don't have time to discuss business? Because they probably hear it as well. Mm. Shenjing Chid merely waved his fan, unspeaking. To be fair, the so-called discussion business was more researching new dishes, cleaning the bamboo house's cutlery and furniture, and coming to act cute and sweet with all those propositions, no matter the time and location. Ming Fan sniveled tearfully as he wailed, Shizun, do something. Unding Peak is no longer willing to come fix our gates. Every time this disciple has to descend and ascend the mountain, traveling several hundred kilometers and spending out of his own purse. His howling annoyed Changing Cheer to no end. Ultimately, he finally and magnanimously did a great deed. Accompanied by Ming Fan's overflowing gratitude and Ning Ying Ying's reluctance to see them go, the great master left Qingjing Peak. A great deed indeed. Oh, goodness. Hence, he was rather depressed. What the hell was this? Shidi Al had condoned his subordinates and miners' attack on Shishong S's gates, and he hadn't even provided any compensation afterwards. Having suffered economic losses, Shishong S went to Shidi X's department to request an allocation of public funds, but Shidi X refused to approve it. The disciple M not only demonstrated zero selfless spirit with regards to contributing to the collective funds, he even kicked his own master off the mountain. The way Shen Qingchu is trying to keep this mysterious. Traitors, the lot of you. That said, Lo Binghe looked very happy. As long as he could cling to Shen Qingchu, anywhere they went was the same in his eyes. Plus, it was more in line with his desires to not have that group of eyesores hovering over them every day. Susan, where shall we go next? He asked in delight, tugging on Shen Qingchu's arm. Shen Qingchu glanced down at Lo Binghe's pose, at how he had encircled his arm with both of his own, and found... what? Oh, okay. And found it hard to look. He really was becoming more and more like a maiden. They looked exactly like two mushroom-picking little girls walking out the door hand in hand. Oh no, but look at the emojis that they used to showcase this. Also, is this not such a whiplash from the previous chapter? I hope you guys can see that. I don't think you can. They're at the top. Anyway, I hope you guys could see that, but I'm not sure how well focused this is. Shen Jingchu was blasted by his own man-made landmine. He asked in response, "Do you have anywhere that you'd like to go?" Lo Binghe gave it some thought. "How about we go to places we've been to in the past and see how they've changed?" Thereafter, the two arrived at the first stop following their eviction from Tangchong Mountain, Shuanghu City. Originally, Shen Jingchu had intended to go by sword, which would have let them arrive within an instant's time, but Lo Binghe seemed to have gotten some kind of idea in his head and insisted that they use a carriage. I love the constant references back to things that were clearly stated to annoy Shen Jingchu or be like sore spots for him early on in the first novel. Using one was fine. Shen Jingchu didn't care either way. Who could have guessed that after they got on the carriage, Lo Binghe would use that shyly expectant expression that he thought he was hiding well to stare at him. The carriage interior wasn't very large, so Shen Jingchu had nowhere to run. He took that burning stare until his hair stood on end. Are you asking for car sex? Don't even think about it. This master absolutely won't agree. You really are a traitor. Lo Binghe stared at him for a long time, but when he saw no particular gesture from Shen Jingchu, meaning they weren't of one heart, his head slowly drooped. Oh goodness. He prodded his fingers together cutely. Shizun, don't you remember? He asked, a bit at a loss. Shen Jingchu realized then that when it came to his everyday inner monologue, it basically always started with a beat of silence. Remember? He asked. Remember what? Lo Binghe was disappointed. Back when the Qingjing Peak disciples left the mountain together for a training experience, you let me ride with you. To think Lo Binghe remembered even such a dusty old affair with such clarity. Meanwhile, Shen Jingqu had pretty much forgotten most of it. Lo Binghe sighed. So Shuzhen really didn't remember. Faced with this contrast, Shen Jingqu couldn't help but feel guilty. He waved his hand, letting Lo Binghe lean against him, then rubbed his cheek to pacify him. Shuzhen only temporarily forgot, "I'm sorry." Having been pacified, Lo Binghe was satisfied, his lips curving upward. Shuzhen's acts of kindness towards me far surpassed this moment. How could he remember each and every one? I don't know if Shen Jingqu would agree with you, though. Pure silence. Could you not headcanon me as such a loving Holy Father? I really had just forgotten. I can't live up to your divine expectations. Shen Jingqu and Lo Binghe wandered leisurely down the main road past Xiang City's gates. Stalls crammed with eye-catching goods bordered them on either side. In the middle of it all, a gorgeous banner fluttered in the breeze. Shen Jingqi's gaze was drawn to the banner before it dropped to the face of the stall owner sitting beneath it. His smile, with its trademark subtle, looking warm and elegant at first glance, but in true cool and lofty cast, froze upon his lips. Lo Binghe was far too sharp. "What's wrong, Shuzhen?" he instantly asked. "An acquaintance?" Crowds thronged around the small table below the banner. It seemed to be a jungle fortune-teller's stall. Behind the table star, a beautiful and sultry woman radiating a thousand types of grace. Okay, that feels like an incomplete sentence, but okay. With a toss of her fine hair and a lift of her lovely face, she met Shen Jingqi's eyes from a distance, and promptly looked like she'd swallowed a kilogram of arsenic. I feel like I should know who this is, but I cannot put my finger on it. But then her gaze turned and landed on the face of Lo Binghe, who stood beside him. Her love for this specific type of man came first above all, and her eyes shone with a sudden bright light, so she took the initiative to greet him. "I trust that the immortal master has been well?" "It's been a while," said Shen Jingqu. "The madam is even lovelier than she was when last we met." The beautiful woman was Madame Mei. I know I should know that name, damn. She waved away the enamored male customers by her table, clearing out space for them while smiling delightedly. "The immortal master is radiant with happiness today. So, did my words from our last meeting not all prove true?" Though she was certainly talking to Shen Jingqu, her eyes were turned in Lo Binghe's direction, and her flirtatious air was both enchanting and seductive, making clear her true intentions. Was that the succubus? I feel like that might have been the succubus, or like she might have been the succubus. It had been a long time since Shen Jingqu recalled the fortune Madame Mei had told for him way back when, but the keyword had been younger, illustrious status, outstanding talent, first-class beauty, often together deeply in love. Shen Jingqu realized with a shock that every single one had been dead on. "This Shen deeply admires the madam's skills," he said. "However, it seems that back then you forgot to tell me the most important thing." She'd gone on and on, hyping it all up until it had practically been raining flowers, but she'd failed to say, "Shen Jingqu, your fated partner is a man." Yeah, no, she did leave that out, but I feel like that's just plausible deniability on her part. Lo Binghe blinked a little, then smiled. "Shuzhen, your relationship with this madam seems quite intimate." Though he was smiling at these words, Shenxinchi felt a toothache coming on. When he thought about it, Lobinghe and Madame Yin had originally been meant to be a pair of cheaters who engaged in countless one-night stands, but now they sat very properly opposite one another as they each talked past the other, and the atmosphere was supremely uncomfortable. Indeed, it made for an extremely unsettling picture. Chen Jingxue gave a hollow laugh. It's not intimate at all. It has been many years since we met. I never thought we'd meet again in the Jianghu, nor that the madam would have started this sort of business in Shuanghu City. Madam Yin humphed. Isn't this all thanks to the cultivator who accompanied your distinguished self on your previous patronage? Which cultivator? Lobinghe suddenly said. Shen Jingchu's smile froze a second time. Oh no. Madame Yin commenced, angrily complaining. Don't blame me for speaking badly behind his back, but when you came, we extended such a courteous invitation, and we treated neither of you immortal masters poorly. Yet he was truly incredible, collapsing half my cavern right off the bat, and scaring away most of my sisters. The next few times we met, he wouldn't leave me even the slightest bit of face. I've lived for a long time, but I have never met such an unfeeling man. One who understands neither romance nor tenderness, who only runs about fighting and killing. Pah! Your name's been spat upon, Liu Qingge. You've actually been spat upon. Oh goodness. The kind of violent actions described could only be attributed to one person. Of course, Lobinghe understood, and he stared at Chen Jingqie. Shizun, was it Liu Shishu? When did you leave Tangchung Mountain alone together? Chen Jingqie saw the veins bulging in his forehead and coughed dryly. That was when you were absent. Liu Qingge pinched his palm hard. Shizun, could you give a concrete explanation to your disciple as to what exactly happened between you, Liu Shishu, and this succubus who's as beautiful as a flower? The fact that Lobinghe felt the need to add that last bit just tells you how attacked he feels right now. Coaxing Lobinghe was already a piece of cake from Shen Jingqie. The steps were, first, calmly say, not as beautiful as you. Then, before Madame Mayin's spasming smile, promise nothing happened, really. If this doesn't work, repeat step 1 and 2. Madame Mayin clearly thought the flames hadn't been fanned high enough. I did throw some of our succubus's mesmerizing fragrance on that cultivator you were with before I left, she said from the side, though given his frigid nature, I doubt it was much of a problem. The succubus's mesmerizing fragrance, the name alone told you everything, an aphrodisiac. Lobinghe's face was rapidly filling with rage. Nothing happened? I swear to the heavens, really, nothing happened. I didn't even have to jerk. I didn't even have to jerk him off. He thought all of this. He didn't actually say any of that to Lobinghe. Lobinghe was both jealous and bitter. This disciple was in the endless abyss, cutting his way through thorns, while Shizun was surrounded by green hills and crystal waters and enjoying himself with other men. What the hell do you mean, other men? Can't you use proper terms like colleague or sect sibling? Shen Jingque waved his fan with incomparable integrity and hoofed. What do you mean by enjoying himself? In a desolate mountain full of frenzied monsters, one person kicks the other into a freezing waterhole and gives them pneumonia. What's there to envy in something like that? That's all? That's all. Madame Million chewed her nails. What do you mean, watering hole? She said hatefully. That was my beloved rose pool. This woman just wishes for death, doesn't she? Since they'd come to Shuanghu City, naturally they needed to look for something to do. For example, they ought to at least eliminate some pests for the civilians. After asking around, it turned out that Chen Manor was yet again experiencing strange incidents. That one year, the wicked, vicious Skinner demon had transformed into the old master's beloved concubine, Dr, and hidden within his manor. After they'd killed her, the room in the wing where she'd once lived had been the site of continuous disturbances. Every night there were wails and screams that sent all the residents into a panic. This had remained unresolved for years. Councillor Chen was already approaching 70 years old. His hair was a snowy white, but his ambitions were the same as ever. Many years ago, for better or worse, the only lovely concubine clinging to him had been Dr. But today he had a girl on either arm, and they made for a beautiful pair of matching wives. The Skinner demon who lurked at his side in the past hadn't weakened his ardent passion for women in the slightest. The old gentleman was already of advancing age, but his memory was by no means poor. When he saw Shen Jingqi, he even loudly called out to him, "Immortal Master Shen." Immortal Master Shen's lofty aloofness was the same as it had been last time around. He waited until old Master Chen asked about the young master beside him, then finally tugged his lips up a little and said gently, "This is indeed my little disciple from back then." Old Master Chen smiled. No wonder he looked so familiar. Only after seeing this immortal master and his beloved disciple together did I realize how many years had passed. The conventional exchange of greetings was naturally handed to Luo Binghe, who had already assumed his former role as the little secretary who handled everything. Shen Qingqi was happy to stand aside and shut his mouth, sliding into his badass poser act that he just always keeps in his back pocket. As he watched the badass darkened demon lord Luo Binghe work patiently, acting as sweet as a true apple of his eye, Shen Qingqi inevitably began to float with happiness. It felt so wonderful. His gaze on Luo Binghe couldn't help but fill with more and more parental affection. Oh, I don't like that. I'm sorry, but parental affection and romantic affection should not be in the same realm with the same person. Oopsie. About the same person as well. So, sorry about that. I hope I didn't damage your ears. Um. hmm. Meanwhile, with every two lines Luo Binghe spoke, he looked over at Shen Jingqi as well, and once his gaze shifted over, it was unable to leave. In this way, master and disciple spent a long period of time making eyes at each other before Shen Jingqi suddenly and finally snapped out of it. How immoral were they being? On their way to the room in question, Luo Binghe kept trying to hold his hand. Shen Jingqi was one, worried about the outsiders, and two, wanted to tease him, so he purposefully refused to let him. The two of them skirted around each other, whipping out all sorts of tricks. If anyone from the cultivation world or demon realm had seen this master and disciple duo using their sex techniques to play fight, flirt, until those arts were unrecognizable, they would definitely have copped up 3 liters of blood. As no one dared to approach the room that was rumored to be haunted, it was naturally very quiet and peaceful. The courtyard was the same courtyard as it had been when last they saw it. It hadn't changed at all, except for the considerable amount of yin energy. When he saw that at last there was no people around, Luo Binghe latched onto Shen Jingqi without delay, rubbing against him as he held his waist from behind, his chin hooked over Shen Jingqi's shoulder. He asked in a whisper, "Does Shizun remember this place?" Of course he remembered. Wasn't this the place where he'd first turned on easy mode? No, I actually think um, Lobingham might be referring to that very first incident pusher or whatever you call it that you triggered back there. But maybe that's just me. Alright, that was a joke. How could he not remember? This was the place where he'd screwed Lobingham over for the first time, and so terribly. Back then, in order to preserve his own life, he'd almost let the Skinner demon strike Lobingham on the head. It had been a rather unkind thing to do, and now that he'd recalled it, he felt bad. He was too ashamed to think about it deeply. When he didn't answer, Lobingham began to bitterly complain. Shizun, you've really forgotten? This disciple is so anguished. Ever since the two of them had begun fooling around, Lobingham hadn't been able to pass a single day without becoming anguished at least several dozen times. Oh goodness. When Shenjingche spoke a couple of words to other people, he'd become anguished. When Shenjingche took too fewer bites, he'd become anguished. When Shenjingche complained that the bathtub was too small and kicked him out, he'd again become anguished. His anguish was like snacking on broad beans, showed up with a snap, then disappeared with another snap. But now that he was standing at the scene of his former crimes, Shenjingche felt guilty and couldn't help but soften a little. His roast of crazy demon dissipated before it could be posted. He quickly reached up and patted Lobingham's cheek. Don't be angry. Today Shizun will grant you one request, but let's deal with the evil spirit here first. Lobingham was delighted. Really? When has Shizun ever? Shenjingche was about to continue, but he shortly shut his mouth to avoid tragically embarrassing himself. Whether he finished with lie to you or screw you over, both would basically be slapping himself in the face. I mean, if you finished with not indulged you, I feel like that would not be slapping you in the face, but that might make you die of embarrassment. So, um, since Shizun said so, Lobingham pulled out length after length of red rope. His face flushed. Oh my word, he was planning this, I swear. I'm concerned. Hello, immortal binding cable? Goodbye, immortal binding cable. When Lobingho saw Shenjingchu's look of sheer disbelief, he didn't force it. He just sighed, stared up at the sky. For some reason, he said softly, ever since the day that disciple safely escaped from the Skinner demon, on many nights he experienced strange dreams. Huh? What do you mean by strange dreams? What kind of dreams um were you? Oh, the kind of dreams where you have to wash your underwear after waking up? Oh my word. Shen Qingque had sinned. It turned out that he had been the pubescent Lobinghurst Sexual Awakening 101 instructor. Oh my word. But the way he said that though is hilarious. A person's object of sexual epiphany was very important, even if it wasn't a mega buxom older lady with all her flowing curves. It ought to at least be a slender, delicate younger girl with a demure personality. Lobinger's life was so unbelievably tragic that it was hard to sum up. The one who'd given him his sexual awakening had been a hot dog. Shen Qingque wanted to bow to him while crying in sympathy, but no matter how sympathetic, Shen Qingque would not give in. Though Luo Binghe's endless pestering and wheedling had ground away most of his integrity, every little bit he could retrieve counted. Even more importantly, can we deal with the official business first? There's a cloud of black fog gathering behind you. It's here. It's appeared. He acted like he hadn't noticed a thing and continued giving voice to his anxieties. So just to clarify, that last bit that I read was not voiced by Shen Qingque. Um, Even now, this disciple is at times tormented by this dream. If he'd said in days past, it might have been believable, but a Luo Binghe who had mastered controlling dream realms being tormented by them, this lie was way too thick-faced and shameless, and said with all confidence at that. Shen Qingque put his hand on Shuya and lightly chuckled. So? Luo Binghe didn't even turn his head. So that black fog couldn't take it anymore. Okay, there's a string of like random digits to indicate probably a very crude word, but there's no actual word there. It's just ers. That's literally what it says. It snarled. Are you both blind? Can't you see me? This voice was very familiar, like that of a dear old friend. Oh my word, is it DR again? DR? Asked Shen Qingque. Don't DR or hua are me. I'm me, the black fog snapped. I'm the Skinner demon who once struck fear into the city. Shen Qingque was speechless. Was this really that insignificant monster that he'd killed with a slap during the beginner level quest? So the rumored vengeful spirits. Had been this guy all along. In both life and death, they didn't forget to harass the residents of this manor. What a work ethic! The black fog forcefully spat out a mass of black smoke. Shen Qingque guessed that to them this was the same as spitting out a mouthful of saliva. You two adulterers dared to come and fool around before me, completely unaware of your impending death, they snapped. Luo Binghe furrowed his brow. Shizun, should we just kill them or capture them for later interrogation? Shen Qingque wanted to see just how stupid the black fog could get, so he raised his hand, signaling for Luo Binghe to stay what the hell was I about to say? Still for now. The black fog made a questioning sound, then drifted closer to Shen Qingque. You look a bit familiar. Of course I look familiar. The culprit who murdered you is standing right before your eyes, and all you can do is doubtfully say, you seem a little familiar. I mean, it's a cloud. I don't think it has the best senses to use for discernment, just to be fair to it. Damn, I'm struggling with this. Hold on, let me just move this so that I don't keep on murdering your eardrums with that sound. How many years had passed? It had to have been at least 10. So under the powerful influence of easy mode, DR's IQ hadn't increased in the slightest, and their memory had even declined quite a bit. Shen Qingque coughed once and reminded them, This, Shen, is the Qingjing Peak Lord. A silence, and then the black fog exploded. Shen Qingque? So it was you. Then who is he? You know him too, Shen Qingque said reluctantly. He was also at the scene that time. After the black fog thought for a long while, understanding suddenly dawned on him. He's your little whelp of a disciple? Huh. Now that DR had finally remembered, they laughed madly without pause. Shen Qingque, good and evil both received their due. Heaven enforces karma for all. To think you actually got. By your own disciple. What an utter degenerate. Absolutely disgusting. I just know that someone would come to exact heavenly justice. I mean, they tried and it failed, to be fair. Shen Qingque had no words. No, that's wrong. As a demon who's committed many evils and received its due retribution, which is to say, dying in a single slap from someone exacting heavenly justice. A line like good and evil both receive their dues, heaven enforcing karma for all, doesn't really suit you, does it? That he thought he didn't actually say. As the black fog laughed and laughed, something strange happened. It was as if a great wind blew by, scattering a mass of smoke, and the black fog gradually dissipated. Only a final black wisp remained, and was still sighing in satisfaction. Retribution, retribution. Changing cheer, you've finally met retribution. Serves you right. I can now die without regrets. Had they become a Buddha, ascending to the heavens, been exorcised? Their bar for dying without regrets was surely a bit too low. No matter how troublesome Lobinger was, it wasn't to the point that he could be called retribution. The yin energy within the courtyard suddenly vanished. Shizun, shall we continue? Asked Lobinger. Shenjin Chu's lips twisted, and he looked at Lobinger, who was still clutching his handful of immortal binding cables. At a loss for words, he said, What do you want to continue? Is your memory really this short, Shenjin Chu? Didn't Shizun say he would grant me one request today? So my request is to ask if Shizun would deign to cooperate a little and allow this disciple to lightly tie him up with this immortal binding rope. Then stay bound for a while so that dream can come true and fulfill this disciple's years-long wish. Then this disciple can die without regrets. See, I don't think Shenjinchi is going to allow that because he doesn't want you to die, so, he's going to be like, no, you will have to remain living in regret. Shenjinchi stared at them. Though DR had already peacefully ascended to heaven via their own inexplicable sense of self-satisfaction, Shenjinchi felt like he couldn't return Shiya to its sheath just yet. He expressionlessly headed outside. Lobinger ran in front of him, cutting him off. Shizun, you promised. Shenjin Chu coldly pushed his hurt face out of the way. Shizun, how could you do this to me again? Lobinger accused. What are you crying about? Even if you cry, it's no use. Don't embarrass us in front of outsiders. Sure enough, when it came to this little beast, tender feelings and sympathy were fully unnecessary. He took back his words. Lobinger really was karmic retribution. Oh my word. But also, Shenjin Chu is so dramatic. Okay, we have, I think, one more chapter left, maybe? But we have at least 15 more minutes left before I take my break. So let's see where we go. Chapter 31. 100 random questions on Lucian's affinity. Okay. Also, I just remembered that I had missed showing you guys one of the illustrations. Let me just try and find it. This one. It was with Madame Meyin. Sorry, it's just so beautiful that it's worth quickly going back and just showing you guys. Any of the other ones. I think it was just that. Okay. The questionnaire interviewees Lobinger X Shenjinche. The questionnaire interviewer airplane shooting towards the sky. This is gonna be strange. The questionnaire provider, the system. airplane shooting towards the sky system had issued him a quest, an extremely bizarre questionnaire. He had no idea what the questionnaire was trying to ascertain. The further down he read, the more disturbing the questions became. But no matter how disturbing it was, he had to farm some points, didn't he? After abandoning his dignity, what little remained in the first place, and pleading with Master Shen Jingche finally, reluctantly agreed to bring along that disciple he'd raised for the purpose of completing this questionnaire. Now presenting live updates from airplane. Your name, please? Asked Shang Jinghua. Having just sat down before hearing this question, Lo Binghe raised his eyebrow and said unhappily, "If you don't even know our names, why would you ask us anything? Your ages?" To tell the truth, Shen Jingche didn't really know the precise age of this body. He raised his head at Shang Jinghua. "Wouldn't you know better than I do?" Shang Jinghua twirled the brush in his hand. He never thought about this question either, so he figured he might as well just say whatever. Therefore, he randomly wrote down a number in a couple of strokes. Your genders? Having received 3 idiotic questions right off the bat, Lo Binghe had already stopped bothering to answer. Shen Jingche couldn't take it anymore either. We've been recategorized into the green JJ's Danmei section. What do you think? I mean, fair, but also, like, obviously this, I think, is MXTX answering the fans' questions as well, but it does make me, like, just wonder how aware is Lo Binghe supposed to be of what's going on, because obviously Shen Jingche is saying all of this with Lo Binghe present, or are we just not supposed to think about that? Shang Jinghua silently drew a line through the next 30 or so similarly stupid questions, then started asking anew, "How is your personality?" Shen Jingche thought for a while. "Alright, probably. The Shen should be considered relatively easy to get along with." "Don't know," said Lo Binghe. "And what about your partner's personality?" Shen Jingche began counting off traits. Crybaby, maiden heart, lovesick, Chinyu, I'm not sure how to pronounce that again, and clingy. A watery shimmer shone in Lo Binghe's eyes. Having been disparaged, he felt a little hurt, but he still obediently answered the question. Naturally, Shizun's personality is the best, gentle and strong and considerate. Shen Jingche fell silent. Suddenly he felt a bit bad. What is this? He coughed dryly twice and changed his tune. Actually, this child's personality isn't too bad. He has one good trait that is especially rare. He listens and does as he's asked. That's enough in itself. A blush rose on Lo Binghe's cheeks. Lo Binghe is weirdly easy to please, but weirdly easy to upset at the same time. When did the two of you meet? Shang Jinghua asked in a monotone. And where? He already knew the answer to this question. The first time I met Shizun was right after I'd passed Tangchong Mountain's initiation trials. Shen Jingche was feeling ill at ease. At the time, Lo Binghe had met the original flavor, not him, and it wasn't a particularly wonderful memory either. He waved his fan. Pass, pass. What was your first impression of your partner? Lo Binghe continued to reminisce. A lofty, untouchable, immortal. He said buoyantly. A small bun, Shen Jingche said frankly, and a handsome little sprout. But also the description of a small bun is weirdly endearing. What do you like about your partner? He listens to me well enough, Shen Jingche said kindly. Lo Binghe smiled. I like everything about Shizun. What do you hate? Nothing, Lo Binghe said firmly. Shen Jingche was a little moved by the resolute and decisive answer, so he reciprocated and also said nothing. Besides, if he really said he'd hated something and made Lo Binghe cry in front of someone else, that would be way too shameful. How do you address your partner? Finding this dull, Lo Binghe turned his head. Shizun, these questions are ridiculous. Exactly what did we come here for? Be good, Bing He. Shen Jingche said calmly. It's just a formality. Think of it as saving your Xiang Shishu's life. How do you want your partner to address you? Oh, that's a bit different than how do you address your partner? Lobingher's face reddened. What terrible thought is he having in his head? The bashful reaction made an ominous premonition well up inside Shen Jingche. He waved his hand. Pass, 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 pass. Having caught on to a possible point of interest, Shang Qinghua wheedled. What do you mean, pass? If you just say pass, pass, pass every single question, what's the point of even asking? Bingo, should you go ahead and say it? Lobinghe nervously glanced at Shen Jingche out of the corner of his eye and quietly said, I'd like to be addressed in a way married couples normally address each other. I have to admit I didn't see that coming. Master Shen, did you hear that? Shang Qinghua asked instantly. Bing Shizhi wants you to address him like you're married. Husband, hubby, honey. You choose one. You shut up, said Chen Jingche. If you were to compare your partner to an animal, what would that be? I'm trying to remember. I think Shen Jingche is a dog of some kind, which makes sense with his personality. Without needing to think, Lobinghe said, a white crane. I can't think of an animal, said Shen Jingche, but I do have a plant, a black lotus. Lobinghe didn't understand. Shizun, do lotuses come in black too? If you were giving your partner a present, what would you choose, and what present would you yourself like? As long as Shizun says the word, I will give him anything he desires. I don't think there's anything I particularly want, Shen Jingche said honestly. As a peak lord, there really didn't seem to be anything that that was hard for him to get. When he thought about it, it really did feel like he was sitting on top of a mountain of gold and letting it go to waste. Then I want Shizun to ignore everyone else and stay by my side for 3 days. That is such a Lobinghe request. Shang Qinghua licked the tip of his brush and muttered, Why not just have him stay by your side for a lifetime? Lobinghe shook his head. Then Shizun would be unhappy. At the sight of his dejected appearance, like that of a grumbling woman, Shang Qinghua was tongue-tied with shock. Oh my goodness. Conversely, Shen Jingche was completely calm. Silly child, you're thinking wild thoughts again. Why would this master be unhappy? How far has your relationship progressed? To the depths of the earth and back again, if that is the scope. We've done all the things we should have and some things we shouldn't, said Shen Jingche. I mean, that's one way to put it. Why are there things we shouldn't have done? Lobinghe asked, hurt. Does Shizun feel that we shouldn't have done it? No, if we really shouldn't have done it, this master wouldn't have let you do it. Where was your first date? Huanhua Palace Water Prison, said Lobinghe. No, Lobinghe, you can't be. No, oh my word. Oh, goodness. Shang Zhihua was silent. Shen Jingzhe was equally silent. Bingo, you called that a date? Oh no. What was the mood between you at the time? Not very good, said Lu Minghe. That wasn't something that could be described as merely not very good. Also, like, if a mood is not very good between two people, why would you choose that instance to be your first date? Oh goodness. Um, where do you your dates often take place. Shen Jingqi rested his chin on his hand. The moment I open my eyes, I see him, and when I close my eyes, he's still the one I see in my dreams. Does that mean we're on dates all the time? Like, we talk about loving her's naivete, but Shen Jingqi isn't far off, I feel. Um, mm, I lost my place, sorry. Does Shizun find it annoying? Nobuha asked cautiously. Shen Jingqi rubbed his back. No, you're just overthinking. Shang Qinghua thought that dating Bing Mei sounded really exhausting. It had only been a couple of questions, but Master Shin had already soothed him 3 times. This glass heart kept shattering and getting glued back together. Exactly when would it end? Annoying. Shen Jingqi is basically a kindergarten teacher who's taking care of a kid. Who was the first to confess? Me, said Lobinger. Of course it was him, said Shen Jingqi. What things does your partner do that makes you feel helpless? Shen Jingqi shrugged and said weakly, whenever he starts to cry, there's nothing I can do. Whenever Shizun gets mad, I'm unable to do anything. Well, that's the crux. Chang Jinghua hummed in acknowledgement, bouncing his leg. He wrote it down while roasting them in his heart. They really are exactly like a kindergartner and his teacher. We're just gonna ignore that um, simile, I guess is what you would call it. Because, yeah, I still don't like that. Um, when you're together, what makes your heart race the most? When he pats my head and gives me instructions, Lovingher said earnestly. When he cheerfully begs me for something, said Shen Jingqi. Lovingher went on. And also when he scolds me and hits me. Lovingher, you can't say things like that without context. He was acting awfully Twitter patted. I don't know what that means, but Shen Jingqi was already very used to this. Shang Jinghua silently added a note beside Lovingher's name. A hopeless masochist beyond care. Sorry, beyond cure. Have you lied to your partner before? Are you good at lying? Right after asking this question, he confidently wrote the words, big fat liar, after Lovingher's name. Yes, said Lovingher, but never again. Have you fought before? What kind of fights were they? Shen Qingqi sighed. We fought a lot, and terribly too. Thinking about it now, I don't know why we did. It could all have been avoided. Why do you keep asking these kinds of questions? Lobinghe asked angrily. You're making Shizun unhappy for no reason. Shang Jinghua shrugged. My bad. How did you make up afterwards? Shen Jingqi waved his hand. We boned to save the world. Just laying it out there. Shen Jingqi, really. Is your relationship publicly known or secret? Have you ever heard of the regrets of Shan? Shen Jingqi shot back. The questions after that were on a free fall in terms of degeneracy. Shang Jinghua cleared his throat. Are you the top or the bottom? Also, but I would have loved to just see Shang Jinhua's reaction to that line, that specific line from Shen Jingqi, the we burned to save the world, because it's like, it's so clearly the two of them trying to see who will crack first. And I would have just loved to see Shang Qinghua's reaction to that. Loving her was uncomprehending. What does that mean? While loving her genuinely didn't understand, Shen Jingqi pretended not to. He waved his fan. Who knows what it means? Pass, pass, pass. How did you decide that? Shen Jingqi thought for a bit. I really don't know. Somehow it just happened that way. Probably because he looks Pitiful. You can't say, oh, I don't know what that is, and then answer the next question that can only be answered when you know and infer from the previous question. Robinho was perplexed. I still don't know what he's asking. Shen Chia patted the top of his head. It's all right if you don't understand, he said earnestly. You're not at a disadvantage in any way. Where did you have your first time? Shen Chia was about to answer when Robinho barged in. Qingjing Peak. My... Oh! Robinho once again barged in. Qingjing Peak, the bamboo house. All right, he'll never acknowledge such a failure of a first time, Shen Chia thought. Let it be. Qingjing Peak, there's nothing worth arguing over. Let him answer however he likes. I won't correct him anymore. What were your feelings of the time? Shen Chia was silent. If you were to be honest, it came down to 3 words. Pain, pain, and more pain. But saying this in front of others would embarrass Robinho far too much. Depressed, Robinho said. Shizun was wonderful, but I was completely useless. The morning after your first night, what was the first thing you said? Shizun, breakfast is ready. Don't say anything else until you put your clothes on first. How many times do you do it in a month? Why isn't Shang Hua like dying inside just a little bit? Shen Qingque thought this was beyond ridiculous. Who's bored enough to count something like that? I bet you Robinho knows the exact amount. Also, why have the questions been consistently moving in such a strange direction? Roughly speaking, once every 3 days, Robinho said seriously. If Shizun is happy, sometimes he'll let me touch him after only 2. Shang Jinhua chewed on the brush shaft, jotting down the record while muttering, "This is unscientific. According to the way I wrote him, even if he did it from the beginning of the month all the way to the end without taking a break, it wouldn't be a problem. Then, under normal circumstances, where do you get intimate? He has an obsession with the bamboo house," said Shen Jingzhe. Robinho smiled brightly while nodding. Oh my word, the way he's just like, yes, I do have an obsession with the bamboo house. And where do you want to try doing it the most? If we're doing it anyway, what does it matter where we do it? Asked Chen Jingche. Baijiang Peak, Robinho said evenly. Of course, that's where he wants to do it. Like, just really rubbing it in, not Shang Jinhua, Liu Qingge's face. The room fell silent. The Baijiang Peak training grounds, Robinho said calmly. The hell? Thought Shen Jingche. Is it your life that you don't care about, or your face? Thought Chang Jinhua. What sort of agreements do you have about sleeping together? If it hurts, he has to tell me, said Robinho. He absolutely has to. No crying aloud, said Shen Jingche. Say, have you guys misunderstood the implication behind the word agreement? If you can't have a person's heart, then you should at least have their body. Do you approve or disapprove of this line of thinking? That's a loser's, a degenerate's take on things, Shen Jingche said contemptuously. Without the heart, what use is the body? Robinho asked. Shang Qinghua thought sadly about how, under his pen, Robinho had obviously been a peerless stallion who'd pursued only his desires to sleep with people, and the number of women he'd R-worded had definitely been in the double digits. That is not good, but then again, why am I still surprised that the original version of Robinho was such a scumbag? He'd known that Robinho in the strange world had turned gay, but exactly had he fallen step by step to this point? If your partner was R-worded by a thug, what would you do? Asked Xiang Jinhua. This question was way too surreal. Shen Jingchu was speechless for a long time until he said, "Who would be stupid enough to do that to him? Even if you were trying to die, at least look for a better looking way to do it." I don't know why that is so weirdly funny to me. Mobinghe rolled up his sleeves, then said, in a leisurely manner, "I'd turn them into human swine and throw them into the endless abyss. Then I'd take some of those other methods by which to slowly punish and play with them for 10 years before finally killing them." I mean, yeah, just in case we forgot that Lobinghe definitely still has some grains of that original personality there. Um, if a good friend said to you, "I'm very lonely, so just for tonight, would you?" and asked to be intimate, would you agree? "I don't have such shameless friends," Lobinghe said indifferently. "I don't need friends." "You really do, though." "I'm sorry, but you really do need friends. Definitely not shameless friends, but you do need friends." Head lowered, Shen Jingchu scraped at the tea leaves in his cup, then took a sip. "I also don't have such friends." "Really?" Robinghe said doubtfully. Liu Shushu wouldn't say that kind of thing? No, Robinghe would not. Tea sprayed all over the floor. Shang Jinhua, who'd had his upper body sprayed with tea, had gone to change his clothes and returned, and now continued his questioning. How do you skip over the best parts? I want to see like Shang Qinghua's reaction to being sprayed with tea. Do you think you're good when sleeping with people? What about your partner? Okay, before we move on, it is like way past the hour, so let me quickly take my break and then we will be back in 10 minutes, so at 17 past for the next section. Okay, we are back. Sorry, my hair is a mess, seemingly. We are back for the final stretch of the final parts. I can't believe it. I still can't believe it. I'm gonna keep on repeating that. Sorry about that. But yeah, it seems like we have about 25 pages left. So let's strap in and basically just start immediately after the sip of tea. Um, okay. Mm, okay. Shen Jingqi let out a dry laugh. Lu Binghe looked on the verge of tears. Oh, and just a quick note, we are on page 349. Shen Jingqi saw his melancholic expression, miserable beyond words, and a pity filled his heart. He turned back toward Shang Jinghua and said angrily, "Isn't it obvious this is a sensitive topic? Pass." Shang Jinghua picked up his ear, picked at his ear, picked up his ear, my word. Okay, okay, it's all my bad. Are you interested in S&M? What is that, Shizun? Why are there more and more things I don't understand? Oh, he's asking whether you like me hitting and scolding you, or if you would feel anything if I pricked you with a needle or burned you with a flame, said Chen Jingqie. Her looked a little bashful, and then said softly, "As long as it's Shizun, how could its disciple dislike it?" Shang Jinghua understood. He picked up the pen and with a flourish wrote, "Loving her, has great interest in S&M. What's the most agonizing thing about sex?" "He's too small," said loving her. "He's too big," said Shang Jinghua. Not Shang Jinghua, Shen Jingqie, damn it. Shang Jinghua silently swore at this master and disciple, calling them shameless, then wrote with another flourish, "Go figure it out yourselves." Just a quick note. Airplane shooting towards the sky. Who do you think is to blame for this? Because it's certainly you. Has the bottom ever actively tried to seduce the top? Shen Jingque pointed at himself. Me? Do I look like that kind of person? It's hard to say because you also look pretty straight, Shang Jinghua murmured. Where do you like being kissed? Lubinger said, forehead, fingers, lips, everywhere. Honestly, this child can't kiss, Shen Jingqie said helplessly. He only knows how to bite. What's the best way to please your partner during sex? Praise him for improving, said Shen Jingqie. Not crying, said Lubinger. Oh my word, a match made in heaven. Shang Hua's brush flew like the wind, and he absent-mindedly added another line. Master Shin's standards are so low. Oh my word. What do you think about at those times? Who issued this questionnaire? Said Shen Jingqie. Do they have any experience at all? At that kind of time, your mind is utterly blank. What else can you think about? Do you remove your own clothes or does your partner help remove them for you? If I let him do it, I wouldn't have any clothes left to wear, Shen Jingqie said. Shizun, how can I control my strength at times like that? Lobinghe said defensively. How many times in one night? How many times? Shen Jingqie asked. No, I mean, do people really make a point to count that? Shang Jinghua turned the page, ready to keep asking, but Lobinghe had long since lost his patience and smiled coldly. If you want to know that much, I'll count today, then tell Shang Shishu later. That will do. The last question, really, it's the last one. What do you most want to say to your partner? Master and disciple glanced at each other. Shen Jingqie waved his fan. We're done here. Binghe, let's go home and eat. All right, Lobinghe said obediently. He wrapped an arm around Shen Jingqi's shoulder, then kicked open the door and left. A strong wind gusted into the room, blowing over the pile of questionnaire sheets Shang Jinhua had just completed until they drifted all over the floor. Shang Jinhua's lips twitched uncontrollably. He squatted down and picked up a couple of sheets, but after some time he suddenly fell to his knees. Cucumber bro, you scam artist, that's definitely not what you most want to say to your partner. My quest master system, please don't deduct points so quickly. There is only one question that didn't get answered. Ah, cucumber bro, you. And I think he just got shocked. Okay, guys, this chapter title is very exciting, and I just want to drink a little bit of tea before we jump into this, because I don't know if I'm ready, emotionally speaking. I have to admit, it's not something that I was actually expecting in this novel, because it's not something that we technically ever got in any of the other MXTX novels. So I'm very intrigued. Chapter 32, Wedding. Shen Jingchu walked for a few steps, waving his fan, before he discovered that the person who had been clinging so tightly to him the whole time hadn't come along. He turned around to see Lu Binghe standing in place, staring at something in a state of distraction. Curious, Shen Jingchu asked Binghe, "What are you looking at?" Only at this did Lu Binghe snap out of it. "Shizun, I..." Shen Jingchu was even more curious now. He walked back and looked in the same direction Lu Binghe was staring, only to see a lively crowd gathered before a moderately sized residence as they surrounded a couple of crimson-clad newlyweds whose faces were obscured. At present, the rowdy gathering was moving into the courtyard. The street was loud in the first place, so he hadn't noticed that a couple was holding a wedding right in front of them. Two young maids were standing at the gates, handing out wedding candy from a basket on their arms to passerbys. In crisp voices they called, "Spreading good fortune, spreading good fortune." Shen Jingchu's first thought was classic wet blanket. Has this family been beset by some evil creature or ghost? Why would you assume that immediately? But no matter how he looked, he couldn't find anything strange. Chen Jingchu, he's looking at the fact that they're getting married. You are really naive sometimes. Just as he was about to ask, he saw Lu Binghe walked over on his own. The young maidens had never seen a handsome man of his caliber, and both were struck dumb as soon as they looked up, forgetting to even hand over their candy. Lu Binghe ended up taking it from their hands himself with serene poise. After acquiring their wedding candy, Lu Binghe returned to Shen Jingchu's side, satisfied. "Shizun, let's go." Shen Jingchu nodded. The two of them walked for a while, shoulder to shoulder. Lu Binghe was still playing with those two round wedding candies wrapped in red paper, and he took another look back at that festively decorated residence with its streams of people flowing in and out. He still seemed to be thinking about something. "Is there something up with that residence?" Shen Jingchu asked. Lu Binghe stared. What does Shizun mean by something up with it? If there was nothing up with it, why would you pay it so much attention? You don't even like candy. A look of understanding came over Lu Binghe's face, and he smiled. "It's nothing, just sharing in the good fortune." He was so earnest when he spoke that Chen Jingchu couldn't help but smile. "This master doesn't recall you believing in such things. Have you never seen anyone get married before?" "It's not that I haven't seen it. I just never imagined that sort of thing could have anything to do with myself." "You never imagined marrying a girl in the future?" Lu Binghe shook his head. Shen Jingchu felt this was rather unscientific. Really? Not even a bit? No matter how you put it, loving her, the former loving her, that was the male protagonist of a stallion novel. How could he never have nursed any beautiful hopes of that kind? And with airplanes shooting towards the skies, crappy tendencies, his beautiful hopes would hardly have stopped at marrying a beautiful woman. They would have been more like marrying a three-digit number of beautiful women all at once, at minimum. Of course, Shen Jingque knew the current loving her wouldn't do such a thing, but how could he never have thought about it? How could he have thought that marriage had nothing to do with him? Loving her thought, then said, I surely never imagined it. Shen Jingque noticed that before. So you mean to say you think such things have something to do with you now? He teased. Unexpectedly, this time, Her didn't reply. Oh, I wonder why. I really hope that Shen Jingque is finally picking up what Her is trying to put down there, because if not, honestly, there's no hope for him left. Um, After that incident, over the next few nights, Shen Jingque didn't know if it was just him, but Her seemed to be especially energetic. Meanwhile, his own old waist, hips, and legs were suffering even more than usual. They returned to Tangchung Mountain every 2 months to visit the family, but if the but because of this, no one was surprised whenever they showed up again. Instead, they enthusiastically surrounded them while munching on their dragonbone cantaloupe seeds. Who's this? Chi Ching Chi started. Isn't this the Qingjing Peak Lord? You're back again? A rare guest. Mm-hmm. It is he, said Shen Jingque. Did you bring any local specialities from the demon realm? Aside from that one next to you. The fact that Lobinger is a local speciality. Lobinger clearly grew from the human realm soil. He shouldn't count as a demonic speciality either way, should he? Shen Jingque thought. Even if I did, no one would want to eat them, so I didn't bring any. Suddenly, a young man walked over, dangling something in his hand. Shen Jingque called out, Liu Shidi, long time no see. What is this? Liu Qingge's expressionlessly caught the feeble, gasping thing Shen Jingque had thrown back at him and tossed it back. A short-haired beast. He said, It's edible. Great. Shen Jingque chucked it at him again. I'm not eating it. I still have the one you gave me years back. It's growing enormous, and it spent all day gnawing on the bamboo on Qingjing Peak. I don't want another. The two of them tossed the short-haired beast back and forth as it shrieked in midair. Shen Shishong, I think you should just take it. Wei Qingwei cut in. If one of them is male and the other is female, and you put them together, maybe they'll draw to each other and won't gnaw on the bamboo anymore. But what if they're both male? I mean, did that stop you and loving her? Just saying. Silence. In the past, when Liu Qingge walked over, loving her would have begun to emit an icy aura and make all sorts of snide remarks. Enmity on full display. But today he seemed to be in a bit of a daze, standing by Shen Jingque's side and not saying a word. Shen Jingque found this rather strange. Not only did he find it strange, everyone else found it strange too. Whenever the sect siblings from Tangchong Mountain came together, the conversation never stopped, and any little remark could get played on forever. But today their conversation was extremely short. They usually headed off to Jiuxin Peak to have a meal together, but seemingly because of Lobinger's strange aura, no one brought up doing so. Before everyone scattered, Chi Jin Chi dragged Chen Jingqi to the side and asked, What's up with your disciple? What do you mean, what's up? Today, your disciple... Did you have an argument? We didn't. Shen Jingque didn't show anything on his face, but his hand tightened around his fan. Oh, then that's good, but I feel like your disciple was so odd today, like he was holding something in. Shen Jingque felt it too. When they returned to Bamboo House, Lobinghe was still in that strange state. Shen Jingque had just sat down on the bamboo couch when a huge crash came from the doorway. He rushed around the screen, only to see Lobinghe sprawled on the floor with Ming Fan and Ning Ying and other disciples gaping at him in shock. Shen Jingque went to help Lobinghe up. What happened? It's not. Before Lobinghe could finish speaking, Ming Fan yelled, Shizun, Lobinghe tripped over the threshold. Shen Jingque had no words. Is this gonna lead to Shen Jingque having to carry him over the threshold after they get married? Okay. I don't know what the context for this is yet. Maybe I should first read it. Okay, let me first read it and then I'll show you guys a picture. Lobinghe glared at Ming Fan, and Ming Fan shrank back in fear. Be on your way, Shen Jingque said hurriedly. Go prepare for morning reading tomorrow. As he closed the door, Lobinghe silently sat down next to the table. Shen Jingque looked at the red spot where his forehead had smashed into the ground and sighed. What's been up with you these past few days? Lobinghe was still silent. Sit and don't move. This master will get you a hot compress. He turned to go to the water basin, but just when he had wrung out a strip of cloth, he heard another huge crash behind him. He startled and turned round only to find Lobinghe sprawled on the floor again. Confusion written on his face, and worried that Lobinghe was too dizzy to sit and stand, Shen Jingque rushed over. Are you? But as soon as he reached him, Lobinghe grabbed his arm. Shizun, marry yourself to me, won't you? I mean, that's an interesting way to propose. Shen Jingque's expression cracked. Just a bit. Having noticed how unusual Shen Jingque's expression was, Lobinghe hurriedly said, Shizun, if you don't want to marry yourself to me, I could also marry myself to you. When Shen Jingque didn't reply, Lobinghe's voice went monotone and he asked again, Shizun, are you willing to... His Adam's apple trembled more and more, and his voice began to quiver as well. Marry me? Shen Jingque still didn't say anything. Bit by bit, the fire in Lobinghe's eyes dimmed. After a long time, he said in a hoarse voice, if Shizun is unwilling, Okay, before we go on, I know this is a rude place to stop it, but just look at that. Look at that. Oh my word. Slow down, said Shen Jingque. He struggled for a while. So these past few days, you were acting so odd because you wanted to ask me this? Lobinghe stared at him, then carefully nodded twice. Shen Jingque found the next few words difficult to get out of his mouth. So you're Lobinghe helped him finish. This disciple is proposing to Shizun. Shen Jingque was speechless. He sat down at the table and buried his face in his right hand. He didn't know what he should say or do. He should have found it absurd. Even though he and Lobinghe had confirmed their relationship a long time ago, he had never imagined that Lobinghe would actually, how should he put it, propose to him? Holy hell, he had proposed to him. The word was profoundly frightening when applied to a young man like him. And who knew how many times Lobinghe had practiced in private just to say these few words? Not to mention how he had been so nervous that he'd been completely strange and abnormal, unable to even talk. He'd tripped over the threshold just trying to walk inside, and he'd even stuttered. But Shen Jingque didn't want to make fun of him at all, nor did he want to play hard to get. Yep, Shen Jingque was terrified to realize that the scariest part was that he was actually just a little bit happy. Lobinghe was clearly still nervous, his throat bobbing up and down. When Shen Jingque removed his face from his hand, he took the chance to say, Shizun, if you don't want to, you don't need to answer my question. If you don't answer, I'll still understand what you mean. Please don't say it out loud. It doesn't matter. If you think it's too much trouble, you can just ignore me. Just pretend I was making a joke, it's fine. Shen Jingque smacked him across the head with his fan, furious. It's fine, my ass. Having been suddenly smacked by the fan, Luo Binghe touched his head and blinked, clearly not understanding why he'd been hit. This innocent expression made Shen Jingque nearly choke on his anger. He had just begun feeling happy about it when the brat, in the next moment, said, It's fine, you don't need to answer, just pretend I was making a joke. The last bit in particular sent Shen Jingque into a rage, and he lashed out and smacked him with the fan again. Is this anything to joke about? Luo Binghe quietly took the hit and whimpered, I was wrong. Of course you were wrong, and this master was just about to say yes. Luo Binghe was halfway through apologizing when he started. Shizun? He said carefully. What was that? Nothing at all, said Shen Jingque. Shizun! Shen Jingque sighed. He didn't say anything, but he motioned Luo Binghe to come closer. As expected, Luo Binghe moved. Given his total familiarity with every movement of Shen Jingque's body, the mere sight of Shen Jingque motioning at him meant he didn't need a single verbal instruction to understand the intent. He obediently went to pour a cup of wine. Then Shen Jingque took the jar and poured himself a cup, after which he motioned Luo Binghe to take the other. Are they going to do the thing where you kind of like, how should I put it, where you like drink via twisting the arms and drinking out of each other's cups? Am I making sense? I'm not sure. Shizun, is this? Shen Jingque picked up the cup he had poured for himself and wound his arm around Luo Binghe's. Luo Binghe's handsome face immediately began to glow with life. His hand shook so much he nearly dropped the cup, and his arm trembled to a frightening degree. With their arms crossed, Shen Jingque nearly spilled the wine in his own cup all over his chest. I thought, Luo Binghe stammered out. You thought you would definitely be rejected, didn't you? Shen Jingque said expressionlessly. Luo Binghe had no reply to that. So you said you didn't want to hear the answer, because you thought you would definitely be rejected. A silence. I was extremely anxious. Luo Binghe looked straight into Shen Jingque's eyes. Shizun, that day, didn't you ask me if I truly hadn't imagined such things before? I really never did. You're allowed to imagine, Shen Jingque said. There was nothing wrong with fantasizing. Was fantasizing illegal now? Besides, what about the chance that your fantasies could actually be realized? When I was young, I thought that no one could want a person like me, said Luo Binghe, so I never imagined that anyone would be willing to have me. You're far off the mark. Later on, Luo Binghe continued, I had Shizun. You were clearly already by my side, but even so, I could never overcome my anxiety. I felt that you might leave me at any time. I didn't know what I should do. I wanted to become stronger, and I wanted to become better, but I still felt like it wasn't enough. I still couldn't stop myself from being afraid. Shen Jingque also looked straight into his eyes. After a while, he stroked Luo Binghe's head inside. Oh, Binghe, I still don't know what I should do now. Then just do what you want to do. 4 hours later, they sat across from each other on the bed, shedding their clothes. Luo Binghe had been terribly stubborn about certain things. He had insistently pulled out 2 sets of bridegroom robes from who knows where, begging and cajoling Shen Jingque to put them on and go through the full proceedings again with him, to bow to the heaven and the earth, drink the crossed cup of wine, and retreat to the bridal chamber. Shen Jingque found himself thinking, even if we put the wedding clothes on, won't we just take them off again later? I mean, yeah, but still. He sort of wanted to laugh, but he let loving her do as he pleased. He'd really never thought that loving her would be the traditional type, consistently dreaming about getting married. At the same time, while it made him want to laugh, he was also overcome with affection, and he began to take it seriously as he too got caught up in the mood. Robinhood's own red clothes were half off when he started staring at Shen Jingxue and lost the ability to move. Bing He? Asked Shen Jingxue. What is it? Susan, you look really good in red, Lo Binghe said in an earnest tone. Why is this weirdly endearing? Oh my goodness. We still have 10 pages to go, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to read fast enough, but we're finishing this. Chenching's skin was fair, and the red of the wedding robes cast a rosy tint on his face, adding an eye-catching splash to his usual appearance. Loving his gaze as he drank him in was even more besotted than usual. Chenching stared, then let out a light cough. Though Lubinghe always talked like that, he was still rather embarrassed. He said reservedly, "You also look very good in red." Very good was barely sufficient to describe the effect. He didn't believe a single girl could look as at such a handsome bridegroom and not cry and wail to marry him. He was about to compliment him further when he saw Lubinghe bring out a sheet of snow-white silk and reverently spread it out over the bed. Why am I worried that this is about to go in a way that Shen Jingqi is not going to be happy with? Shen Jingqi felt an ominous premonition. Same, Shen Jingqi. What are you doing? Lubinghe blushed. This disciple heard that that it is common for a newlywed couple's wedding night. Before he could finish, Shen Jingqi felt goosebumps erupt all over his body, and other rules or traditions were fine, but this tradition was way too strange when applied to him. Shizun, this disciple swears he won't really let you bleed. Mm. Oh no. Robinghurst said hurriedly, red-faced. I just wanted to go through every step of the ceremony like a real married couple. Shen Jingqi blushed. Oh, and there goes my camera. Sorry, give me a second. Sorry about that. Let's keep going. Um, Let's just forget these kinds of superfluous formalities. He was about to take away the white sheet when he saw Lobinghar looking at him on the verge of tears. He could never withstand Lobinghar looking at him like that, and now he couldn't bear to do away with the sheet. After a long time, he helplessly forced out a few words. But as you said, even if we lay it out, it won't be of any use. Lobinghar looked hurt as he replied, but without this essential item and this essential step, how could it count as a wedding night? A beat. Fine, fine, fine. If you insist, just leave it. Lobinghar promptly hugged him and buried his head in the crook of Shen Jinchu's shoulder. Shizun, you're so good to this disciple. Shen Jinchu forced himself to stay calm. I'm so. As he spoke, he felt one of the arms around him going in the wrong direction. Lobinghar efficiently stripped Shen Jinchu until not a stitch remained upon him, leaving only the pair of snow-white calf-length socks on his feet. Even though the master-disciple pair had done it countless times already, for a person like Shen Jinchu, some matters of pride couldn't be entirely conquered, no matter how many times it had happened. When he looked at Lobinghar looming over him, he felt faintly nervous. He tilted his head and closed his eyes, feeling one hand land on the inside of his thigh, trying to spread open his legs. He resisted a bit at first, but soon he went along with it and spread them. He felt a finger on his lips as Lobinghar cajoled him. Shizun. Shen Jinchu opened his lips crack, allowing Lobinghar to put a finger in his mouth. He licked it with a light touch. Because his eyes were still closed, the sensation of that slender finger stirring around in the warmth of his mouth, playing with his tongue, was even clearer. One wasn't enough, and soon a second finger was pushed in. As Lobinghar took in Shen Jinchu, struggling to take his fingers deeper, wetting them more with his tongue, his eyes sparkled. He pulled them out and reached toward Shen Jinchu's lower body. This is something, quite something. After some ministrations, the tight pale hole in the valley between Shen Jinchu's thighs was dripping wet, looking incredibly soft to the touch. Lobinghar laid himself over Shen Jinchu, careful not to crush him. Shen Jinchu felt a hard, hot, round head press against that most secret part of him, and his entrance opened round the front half of the tip of that ferocious member. Could even feel the forceful pumping of its arteries. Again, this is a lot, and I'm like, I thought we were done with these. I mean, I shouldn't be surprised, but I actually would have loved to see more of the other things surrounding the wedding instead of the sex. But maybe that's just me. Hmm. Shizun, Lobinghar said in a low voice, I'm going in. Shen Jinchu had kept his eyes closed the whole time, but he nodded slightly. Lobinghar held his waist with both hands, then plunged forward. Shen Jinchu couldn't keep a groan of pain from escaping his throat, and he grabbed the arm Lobinghar had locked around his waist. Even if he had made his mental preparations and relaxed himself as much as he could, if it didn't fit, it didn't fit. Lobinghar's pillar wasn't even halfway in before it was caught in place. The the person behind the person what am I struggling so much? What? Sorry, the person beneath him was warm and soft within, but the ring of muscle at his entrance refused to cooperate, clamping down and keeping him from going deeper. Lobinghar spared one hand to stroke up and down, changing chairs member. Pleasure trailed through Shen Jinchu with the attention, and when Lobinghar felt him relax a little, leaving room to advance, he continued to push forward. Being split open was extremely uncomfortable. Shen Jinchu's back arched, unwittingly presenting the two pale bumps on his chest to Lobingher's face. Lobingher's hand wandered up to rub his dimples. As a man, Shen Jingchu didn't really like it when someone played with that part of him, as it filled him with a strange feeling of humiliation. He went to push Lobingher away with a trembling hand, but then Lobingher leaned down, and a strange, wet and swelling sensation came from the right side of his chest. Shen Jingchu's face flushed so red it practically looked like it could drip blood. Oh damn, that's intense. And he hurriedly tried to push Lobingher's head away. But just as he started to panic and became distracted, Lobingher sank down again and buried himself entirely into the place between his legs. Shen Jingchu felt as if his entire body had been split in two by a blade of flesh, and a pain exploded in his lower body. The pain spread from Lobingher's excessive length, bulldozing through his insides as it advanced into his passage, making him feel as if a whole arm had been stuffed inside him. And that large, full head was like the fist on the end of that arm. This is a lot. Send help. Goodness. Mm, I lost my place completely. um, Nearly making him want to pass out on the spot, but as Lobing abruptly brushed past a certain spot inside Shen Jingche, his cry of pain changed its tune. Lobing held him by the waist and rammed against that spot. After several more rounds of this, he finally softened, along with the tightly clenched muscles of his rear. As soon as he relaxed, that place on Shen Jingche's lower body became awfully sweet. His entrance was long and deep, warm and wet, and it could be plunged into all at once, while it was powerless to resist. Okay? From Lubic's angle, he could see how Shen Jingche looked beneath him just by glancing down. Shen Jingche's eyes were closed, brows faintly knitted, expression hovering between unbearable pain and unbearable pleasure. His thighs were spread, his long, smooth, and pencil-straight legs folded up to his chest, and his white socks were still properly snug on his feet. That's a weird detail to add. The sight excited Lobing beyond measure. I bet it did. Shen Jingqi's hands were clenched in the sheets, and he took every slam of Lobing inside him with gritted teeth, each one making him fear that his internal organs were getting rammed out of place. But there was nothing he could do but wrap his legs around Lobinger's waist and adjust his own rhythm, clenching and relaxing as he took Lobinger in and out. The soft flesh around his entrance burned with pain from the friction, and he hissed, "Bring her gentler." He felt he had definitely still ended up bleeding. Lobinger looked down, then froze. Sure enough, a dark red streak trailed down from the point of their joining and seeped onto the snow-white sheets, spreading in a bright patch of color like a fallen peach blossom petal. After a long time, Lobinger murmured, "Shizun, I'm sorry. I said I wouldn't actually let you bleed, but I still..." Changing Chu was getting slept to death and back, and he had absolutely no strength to prop himself up and look at his lower half. Either way, he didn't need to look to know it would be a frightful sight. The worst part was how, even as Lobinger apologized, the movements of his hips didn't slow in the slightest. His movements were so forceful that Changing Chu slid up and down as he pricked and ached. Don't, don't, don't what? Don't call me Shizun. Are we getting the, husband thing? Getting called Shizun at the sort of time when his I can't read that. I can't read that word. I'm dying here. When he was in this position, you guys can go check if you have the physical copy of what is actually stood there. Always made him feel like he had been rather too assiduous in his role as a mentor. If I can't call you Shizun, then what should I call you? Shenjingchu sobbed. Anything you want, anything, slow down, Bingo, slow down. Moving her slid an arm around his waist and gave him another 2 hard plus, took a gasping breath and said, Okay then, Shizun, if you also call me something different, I'll slow down. With his waist being lifted, Shenjingchu felt that enormous thing plunge even deeper inside him. Call you what? Lobinger paused his movements, still holding him, and said, extremely bashful and reserved, it's our wedding night, Shizun. You tell me, what should you be calling me? Silence. Help me. Shenjingchu shook his head frantically. Lobinger was still waiting, in blissful anticipation. Shizun, that's what I want you to call me, okay? To his disappointment, Shenjingchu clenched his jaw, refusing to open his mouth, even as tears welled in the corners of his eyes. At the sight of his resistance, Lobinger's eyes instantly filled with tears. Shizun, he said in dismay, we've already come this far, and you. Why will you still not? Lobinger sounded extremely distressed. Shenjingchu told himself he definitely wouldn't fall for it again, but Lobinger's tears were basically some kind of fantastical item that he could summon with a snap, and just like that they began to drip down. Just once, said Lobinger. If Shizun is willing, do it just this once. I'll remember, and I won't push you to do it ever again after today. Is that still no good? Shenjingchu's face was showered in Lobinger's tears as that thing assaulted his insides, leaving him practically unspeakably suffering. When you're like this, how am I supposed to say no? That part, he thought. In the end, Shenjingchu decided to concede one more time. But there would definitely, absolutely not be a next time. Yeah, no, definitely not. We know you're a man of your word. With difficulty, he sucked in a breath and struggled to say, in a quiet voice, husband. Lobinger's eyes immediately lit up. Shizun, what did you say? Shenjingchu repeated. The later half of the word was as quiet as a mosquito's buzz, furtively swallowed as he switched to pleading. Bingo, you slow down, would you? But how could Lobinger let him get away with it just like that? Shizun, a bit louder. I didn't hear you clearly. In a surge of passion, he got overly excited and his movements became greater as well. After a few hard thrusts, Shenjingchu felt as if his organs were roiling in his stomach, and finally he fully surrendered. Shenjingchu's hands tugged helplessly at Lobinger's hair as he sobbed and cried, Husband, I'm begging you stop. I can't take it anymore. I really can't. Before he could finish crying, Lobinger picked Shenjingchu up entirely and made him sit in his lap as he plunged into the deepest spot inside him. Lobinger, I thought you were so good at listening to Shenjingchu. One arm around him and the other around his waist as he moved him up and down in bliss, he called out, Wife! I don't think Shizun is gonna appreciate that. Save me! As soon as he heard this, Shenjingchu's entire body, including his rear, clenched tightly in despair. Holy hell, shut up. Don't call me things at random. But Lobinger didn't listen to a single one of his protests. He forced Shenjingchu up and down and embraced him. Shizun, you're the best, he said quietly. I always wanted you to call me that. Can you do it a few more times? A flow of warmth trailed down the back of his neck. Shen Jingqi didn't need to look to know that Lobinghe was sobbing again. Shen Jingqi truly had no defenses against him whatsoever. The limbs were intertwined, both of them sticky with hot sweat. Lobinghe's waist was back shone with moisture, and Shen Jingqi nearly couldn't hold on with his legs alone. So he hooked his arm around Lobinghe's neck to stop himself from sliding down. This drew them even closer, until the space between them was practically non-existent. As he left, a smatter of passionate kisses on Lobinghe's face in encouragement. To Lobinghe, his cooperation was like candy given to a child. His eyes lit up in joy, and his lower body worked with even more force. The solid ridges flared head ground back and forth in changing chairs while tormented rear until he finally surrendered and entirely stopped trying to clench his jaw, letting out a cry of both pain and pleasure. Lobinghe loved the sound more than anything. He loved every sound Shen Jingqi made. Before Shen Jingqi's consciousness faded completely, he still heard Lobinghe whispering in his ear, "Shizun, call me that again." He's never gonna hear the end of it. I don't think that it's a lost cause. Okay, 4 pages left. When he woke up the next morning, Shen Jingqi's first thought was that he wanted to smash himself to death against the extremely well-developed short-haired beast on Qingjing Peak. He swore up and down that he'd lost his entire life's worth of face last night. He absolutely couldn't suffer another moment more embarrassing than that. Lobinghe lay beside him in high spirits. As soon as he saw that Shen Jingqi was awake, he swooped in for a kiss. Shen Jingqi suspected he hadn't slept at all, and that he'd stayed up staring at Shen Jingqi the whole night. Pretending to be asleep would be pointless. He wanted to say something, but his throat was so hoarse that he only got out a few slurred sounds. With that kiss, Lobinghe seemed to have gotten everything he wanted. "Shizun, get some rest. I'll go make breakfast for you." He was about to get up and get dressed when Shen Jingqi mumbled out a few words. "What is it?" Lobinghe asked. Shen Jingqi's face was already very red, and with Lobinghe's question his flush became even more evident. He mumbled, "Nothing." Lobinghe wanted to press him on it, but he controlled himself. "Then I'll go make breakfast." He carefully covered Shen Jingqi back up with the blankets, turned and got off the bed, where he picked up the clothes on the ground and slowly put them on. Shen Jingqi sat on the bed, with clothes that Lobinghe had pulled over him, draped over his body, and stared at Lobinghe's shoulder and handsome silhouette from behind. He stared at him for a long while and suddenly, as if he'd been possessed, mumbled, "Husband." Lobinghe's body froze. As if his entire person had been nailed to the spot, he turned around extremely slowly. "Shizun, what did you just call me?" Shen Jingqi's tongue tied itself into knots. Huh? He wanted to explain, but there was nothing to explain. This master, As they said, people shouldn't trigger death flags. He just said he couldn't embarrass himself any further in this lifetime, and he'd gone and embarrassed himself more right away. This time, Lobinghe hadn't pushed him to the messy brink of passion, nor had his heart been softened by Lobinghe's tears. There was no excuse. That was to say, he had simply, for some reason, wanted to try calling him that. Which I love. Thank you for giving me that. But afterward, he was so embarrassed that he practically wanted to dig himself a hole on the spot, or bash himself to death against a chunk of tofu. In the end, Shen Jingqi finally gave up on explaining himself and lay down in defeat. Forcing himself to remain calm, he said, "This master is hungry." Lobinghe lay back down with him, smiling. "Shizun, I'm hungry too. Oh no. If you're hungry, then go cook. But being a bit late to breakfast once in a while was no big deal. Gotta say, that's not where I was expecting it to end. There we go. We are done with volume 4 of Scum Villian Self-Saving System, and I'm so glad that I actually managed to finish my first personal read-along of a series. Obviously, I also did Faraway Wanderers, but that was read by Vivi, who's amazing. But she, helped me with that, and she did all the reading for that, so I kind of feel a little bit accomplished, weirdly enough. The sex scenes were killer, not gonna lie, but it was just so much fun. I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. And yeah, next week we are back to Urha, so I guess this was good warm-up for all the things that Urha is probably gonna throw at me, because Urha is also not shy of its sex scenes at all. And I hope you guys will join me for that, and if you don't, I hope you guys still enjoyed this one. And yeah, have a lovely rest of your week. 再见。